And hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And tonight we're going to get real. We're talking timber, one of my favorite topics because it is so important to Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, and Montana. Huge fires going on all over the place. We just had another one break out here in Montana, in an area that I was just riding bikes with my wife the other day, and we looked at it and said, look at all these dead and dying trees. This is perfect for a fire. What a horrible thing. And 2 days later, there's a fire. So I was reading in my email the other day, and this group called Henri, and I belong. It's my favorite, run by Jen Hamaker and a bunch of other wonderful people. Jen had written a letter to some folks, and this is going to be a conversation about you caused this, not Jen, not me, but a certain entity and government agencies. And, you know, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in here, too. A lot of people are waking up and all of a sudden going, how come this is happening? How come our forests are burning down? How come we don't have affordable housing? How come the spotted owl doesn't have any habitat because we let it burn in the Labor Day fires? Well, it's because we've been letting government and courts and judges run our forests. They have become our forest managers rather than foresters and science. Some of you people keep screaming about follow the science all the time, and you're the first people who don't do it. So we're going to talk about that tonight. But first, let's get our sponsors in here. Trusted and caring Dr. Michael Bratland loves conversation, loves for people to have their civil liberties, and is all about freedom. And he is one of our big sponsors. Also, Greg Hinkle here in Montana from New American joining us tonight. Oh, there he is, Greg Hinkle. I actually pulled up a little bit of Greg. I didn't expect him to pop up like that. If you're looking for a mortgage in Oregon, Washington, or Montana, he works in all 3 locations. And Montana Oral Surgeons and Dental Implant Center right here in Montana. They're in Helena, they're in Bozeman, they're in Great Falls. They have so many locations I have to remember. And also Butte. Did I say Butte? I think I did say Butte. And Helena. Great people doing great stuff. And New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center, Matt McCarl, has a big special. In fact, he's got a new video out talking. We just shot an interview with him with an expert in hyperbarics. So if you're looking for more information about it, that's a great place to go and look. And Bradley Rain out of Creswell, heating and air conditioning. Now's the time to get on their program for the fall, because when the winter comes, you're going to be sorry if you have not had everything put together. Before we start, I'm going to show you, this is going to set you up just a little bit, Jen. So this is we are producing a program called the Truth About Timber. This is our 2nd season. We recently went down to Medford, where they had just had a fire. And I talked with a woman who works with, I can even find it here, I think somewhere, the Southern Oregon Forest Restoration Collaborative. So this is some in the environmental community, some in the timber industry. They're all working together to try to find solutions for timber. We talked with her. She has some really cool things to say. This is only 30 seconds, but listen.
Have some old-fashioned, they're like throwbacks to the 80s and the timber war, where they think they're fighting the good fight. What's happening to old growth is catastrophic fires. They're fighting an old war in the present tense. Is the way you get big old growth trees is by thinning it out and letting them grow. If you let nature take its course, then you're willing to let the old growth burn up.
And if you guys want to see that story and more, go to the Truth About Timber on our YouTube page under Rick Dancer, and you can find that story and all the rest that we have done. But if you hear what she's saying that, you know, the people who are anti-logging is basically anti-timber people. They're not environmentalists. You and I are environmentalists. We care about the old growth. We also care about the products that come out of the forest. And we care enough about the animals and creatures that live there that we don't want it to burn up like they're allowing it to do. And she's saying, you know, we have the science, we have the plans, the BLM has the IVM plan, and it keeps getting held up in court by anti-timber people. And that's a problem. But we have to call them what they are, and that's what they are. They're anti-timber. These are also a lot of times the well-meaning people who also scream about affordable housing and how we need more affordable housing. So if you make logs more scarce, how does that make homes more affordable? I want you to think about that for a second. That's like, so we're making it so that we're going to have to start shipping logs into Oregon, where we grow them better and more environmentally sound than any place in the world. But we're going to give Japan and Russia our business so that we can non-sustainably haul those logs with ships all the way across the sea here to the United States. That doesn't seem very environmental, does it, Jen Hamaker?
They're not environmentalists.
No, I refuse to say that anymore. And I'm going, and it's not. I also heard one of persons that we both know say, instead of timber management, it's really timber maintenance. You're maintaining a forest. And it's just like this woman that we just saw on this from down to Southern Oregon, really interesting woman, and much more on the conservationist kind of thing than me, but we all see the same thing. We're seeing the same stuff. Yeah. So Jen is with ONRI, Oregon Natural Resources and Industries, right?
Yes.
And she's been really super involved in all kind of timber issues. This is timber runs in her blood, actually, and literally. And her family used to own Seneca Sawmill in Eugene, Oregon. And so she follows this really closely. But tell me, that you wrote a letter. I know that you can be scathing, but wow.
I'm pissed. I am so mad. I am so pissed, and I'm so fed up with people that are appointed to positions that get to pass policy that affect human beings' lives, Oregonians' lives, that have no business being there. The people on the Board of Forestry are, from all different walks of life, but the bottom line is they're appointed by our governor.
Who's anti-logging? Your former governor. It's your former governor, right?
Yeah, Kate Brown. Yes.
Yeah.
She's the one that appointed these people onto here. Recently, there was two people left, so they replaced with two, and one of them is Dick Van Dyke, who is a 30-year what they would consider environmentalist. I call it anti-environmentalist. He's made millions off of suing and putting timber sales and anything to do with that into courts for decades till the money's gone and they can't fight anymore. And for passing propaganda, it's horrible.
He's out now on the Board of Forestry, which helps decide how forests are going to be managed in our state.
Yes. Sorry, I should have said that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, he's on the Board of Forestry. The Board of Forestry's job is to direct the Department of Forestry on the forest policy. And so, yes, absolutely. He is one of the 7 people sitting on that board. And but what I really wanted to talk about was the 7 mills that have closed in Oregon this year since January.
And January, because a lot of people aren't going to know this, and we're going to keep talking about this because I think that's what people need to hear. The Habitat Conservation Plan, Brown pushed this. The Board of Forestry had to approve it. Well, their job was to look at it to decide whether it was going to be viable. And rather than look at the facts, they did what was political, and they approved this Habitat Conservation Plan, which put hundreds and hundreds of people out of work.
Thousands. Yes. Yep. And then, so basically, there's been 7 mills that have closed since January. Hampton.
Oregon.
Yep. In Oregon alone. Hampton up in Banks, Roseboro, Interfor, Prairie City, C&D Lumber, which has been around since 1890.
Wow.
We have the Malheur, which has been around since 1983. We have Western Cascade in Toledo that just shut down, and we have Willamette Falls in West Lynn that's 135 years old, and it shut down because at all of this across the board is the lack of timber supply.
And the lack of timber supply, because this habitat conservation plan basically took state land. Is that, you correct me at any time because you know this better than I do, but I do listen to Jen a lot. She's educating me. I'm getting becoming educated. So that then they can't get timber, and that's what people don't think about. Because so we hear about these mills. But what you don't hear about is the Jay Brownings that are cutting back on loggings, all the loggers that are cutting back because there's no logs to cut. Then you have the trucking companies, and then the people who are mechanics who keep the trucking companies going. And then you have the little restaurants in Astoria and Clackamas and places like that that supply the food for these guys and women when they're out at lunch and stuff. So all this has a trickle effect, and it shouldn't have happened.
Oh, it's so sickening. I know 4 logging companies that are literally auctioning off all their equipment right now. And these are generational family-owned logging companies with grandkids that are out there. This is just, and it's so unnecessary. So the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan that the Board of Forestry passed on state lands, shuts down 56% of our available state timber.
Okay.
So that's, and then also we have the private forest accord that was passed. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now you're back. You're back.
Okay. The thing that in itself is horrific, and it's closed mills. But the other part of this is that, let's just take the 2020 Labor Day fires, just for some facts and figures. It burned over 1 million acres, the Labor Day fires did. And that was equivalent to about 15 billion board feet of timber, which is equivalent to 1 million new family houses. And that right in the middle of a housing crisis, housing shortage and affordable housing crisis. And we just burned up 1 million potential homes in the 2020 fires. Right now in Oregon, we've burned over 1.5 million acres. So the long-term effects of this is, each year, I think it's estimated that we're going to be the available timber is decreased 225 million board feet a year for 40 years. That's not including the 24 fire, that's 1.5 million acres. So not only are our forests burning down, so our available timber is going away, but it's also being shut down because of environmental lawsuits and because people aligning with the anti-environmentalists. And then the crazy thing that happens there, Rick, is that when you burn down, so you set aside 56% of our state forests for the spotted owl or the marbled merlette or the whatever endangered species they come up with. You shut down 56% of our state forests, and then it burns. Well, then you just burned up all their habitat. And what they're doing is going, oh, we just burned up all that habitat burned down. That wasn't our fault, but all that habitat burned down. Now we're going to have to find another section to close down. And it perpetuates the same results, because if you close down a forest and you don't manage it, and those fuel loads build over 70 years, the HCP that we're talking about is a 70-year generational HCP. It shuts down our forest for 70 years. So you get 70 years of fuel and it burns it down. Well, of course the spotted owls are going to die. Of course all the wildlife is going to die. Our air is going to be polluted. Our water is going to be polluted. It's just a cycle that they know that they can make money off of.
So Jen, here's the thing that I don't understand. So when they make this HCP, then you can't go in and do anything to that. No thinning. Can they do anything?
They have a forest. Yeah, but it's convoluted. It's not, they can. So just for reference, a spotted owl gets 4,000 acres. A spotted owl gets 4,000 acres. So in the HCP, this is a crazy part. Inside of the HCP, it says that each spotted owl gets 4,000 acres set aside for just them. But then when asked, well, how do you know the spotted owl is there? Because they have pinpoints on the map. One here, one here, one here, one here. How do you know that they're there? Well, somebody saw one back in 1990. In 1990?
So we're shutting down an entire forest for a bird. And now you can get even weirder. Weird's kind of a new word that a lot of political people are using now. But here's what's really weird is the marbled merlette,
yes,
which travels, they're elusive. You can hardly ever find them. And they go hundreds of miles out into the ocean and then come back here to nest just off and on. And we're basing plans off of this bird as well.
Oh, we shut down the entire Elliott State Forest. Our first state forest in Oregon is shut down. It's almost 90,000 acres and it's shut down because of the marbled merlette. And let me tell you something about the marbled merlette. If you go on the Alaska Fish and Wildlife website and you put in marbled merlette, it'll say marbled merlette, the state's #1 most abundant bird in Alaska. It's so abundant that they've moved down the coast into Washington and into even down in Northern California because there's so many of them, but they're on the endangered species list. So we have to shut down forests to allow them to come here and breed. They fly 60 miles an hour. They come to shore for 6 weeks at a time to lay eggs. The eggs hatch, they push the fledglings out, the fledglings fly, and they never go back to that nest again.
So here's another kind of news story that I've seen out here in the last few weeks is, okay, so we've got the spotted owl and the habitat. And then back when I was still in the news business, they discovered that this other owl, which they're all basically owls, called the barred owl, was actually endangering the spotted owl. So now we have so many barred owls that we're now the force, I don't know who it is, probably Fish and Wildlife is going to go out and kill hundreds of these barred owls because they're intruding on the spotted owl's territory.
However, if you could tell the difference between a barred owl and a spotted owl, I'll give you $100.
Well, I've seen this. I remember going on a story. No,
the only thing that's really different about them is that the barred owl is a little bit bigger. They're a more aggressive species. They are not native, and they are breeding with the spotted owl also. So it's funny because they compete for food. The barred owls will eat a spotted owl, and then they also breed. So, and they're cousins, DNA wise, they're cousins. So yeah, the barred owl, there's only the two biggest threats to a spotted owl is the barred owl and forest fire. That's it.
Huh. Mm-hmm. So, and we should remind people too, I think an interesting little factoid here is when the Labor Day fires burned in Oregon a few years ago, a lot of the land that was, the reason it burned is because it wasn't managed well. There was a lightning storm and power lines. We don't know what all of that. There's a huge, I'm not getting in that battle. But anyway, these huge fires and the wind started blowing them. A huge chunk of the land up in the McKenzie Valley, I know for sure, was spotted owl habitat that was destroyed. So our very not taking care of it, and this notion that people have that Mother Nature will take care of herself, which is a total lie, destroyed the spotted owl habitat that we were trying to protect.
Yes. So
we have science. We know the BLM. I just got done with a story on this. The BLM has a IVM, a vegetation management plan, and they try to implement it to go in and have logging companies thin. Other people come in and clean up some of the brush, clean up a little bit of the canopy stuff. But every time they try to do this, the newest kind of forester in Oregon is called a judge. So we're allowing judges in Oregon to be forest managers, and they're determining what's going to happen in our forest rather than using the science, the plan, and foresters.
Right. Known experience, known knowledge, known wisdom about our forests have been thrown out. Now we have a bunch of people that are in these positions of authority. Just to give you an example, between 1952 and 1987, did I already tell you this? Between 1952 and 1987, Oregon only experienced one fire in excess of 10,000 acres. And that's when we managed our forests.
Yep. I talked to somebody in one of our series on the Truth About Timber with Oregon Department of Forestry. And he said in there, you know, he can remember 10, 15 years ago going on fires. If you had a 10,000 acre fire, that was a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Now, 100,000 is, you know, not unheard of.
Yeah, no, it's insane, crazy. And the people that are fighting these fires, you know, ODF does a real good job at fighting fires. The federal government does a real sucky job at fighting these fires. What the people that are out there really fighting these fires that should be hailed as heroes are the people that are actually in the wood products industry. We send hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment out there, people out there, rigs out there, food out there, making sure that people have what they need to fight these fires at our expense.
Right. But what we should be doing is these vegetation management plans so that we don't have the fires. And it's like, you know, I was on one, Jen, on this shoot, and, you know, and I'm just starting to learn how this stuff works, which Oregonians and Montanans and Idahoans and everybody you need to get educated on this, because you're going to lose your forests if we don't. They took me to a forest up on the top of the hill, and it was not old growth, but it was going to be. I mean, it was really beautiful, lots of space, lots of canopy, you know, the whole, just exactly what you would want in a forest, not a lot of brush and dead trees. Then there's a road, and then the stuff downhill from that was all shit. It was like needed to be thinned, all this kind of stuff. But a judge in a court filed by these anti-logging groups shut down that sale. Yeah. And if that sale, if a lightning bolt hits that and starts that off, that beautiful forest that's headed for old growth stature someday is going to be wiped out. And people need to understand this. You're not saving old growth. Old growth on federal lands is not logged. So, no. and we'll give credit where credit's due. The used to be environmental people brought this to the attention. Old growth logging is very limited. And okay, so we're saving the old growth. But now, as this lady said in that soundbite, this 1980s mentality is still hanging on. And it's like, and so now the very people who were trying to save old growth are now destroying it.
Yeah, I think in Oregon, there might be one mill that could possibly have the capacity to mill an old growth. But there's no mills really in Oregon that have the capacity. They'd have to retool, and the juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze. And also, 1/3 of Oregon is set aside. 1/3 of the timberland in Oregon has been set aside and will never be harvested, will never be touched. They're part of the national and state parks, recreation areas. They will never be touched. And so we're talking about the state forests, you know, they log on 80 to 100-year rotations. Those are huge logs. And you know what those logs are used for primarily? The poles that carry the electricity. Because the core of them, because they're such big logs, the core of them have no branches, so no weaknesses. So they can withstand the weather, and then they're straight and they're strong. And so that they can put they can treat them and then put the electrical lines on them. And you see that all over America and every other place in the world.
So Jen, you get notifications from local leaders in Oregon and other places. And they, from conversations we've had, some of them act like all of a sudden, why are all these fires burning? What's going on? How come this is, and does that just irritate the hell out of you?
It just irritates the hell out of me. I was telling you earlier about a fellow that called who is just a wonderful man. He means well, but I told him today, I said, it really pisses me off that when it happens to you, now you're going to jump on board. I was like, it's been happening for decades. And it's just in the last, well, since the Labor Day fires really woke a lot of people up.
Yeah.
And now this year is 1.5 million acres burned. That's so many. And I was just talking to our friends over in John Day. Their neighbors had 300 mamas and baby cows burned in this fire. And there's been like almost 1,000 of them dead because of this fire, which is super unnecessary.
Right. And cruel. But I guess all those people who think cow farts are going to destroy the environment will be happy.
Well,
but that is really super cruel. And this kind of thing should not be happening.
No.
So when you wrote that letter,
yes.
What are you saying to the Board of Forestry?
Fuck you. That's what I was saying. That's what was in my heart. Fuck you. Fuck you for all the job loss, for all of the waste of timber, for our mills being shut down, for people's livelihoods being taken away. 220 public services gone. We have this immense amount of hundreds of millions of dollars spent in fighting these fires when we could be managing them, which would cost far less, and then also be making money off of them in a sustainable, harvesting them sustainably. This is just, it is so unnecessary on so many levels. It's not even funny. And
they were warned, because people like you and others went to the Capitol and said, this is what's going to happen. And they didn't listen.
Yes. We went for years. We went and we pleaded with them. We begged them. We showed them facts and figures. We pulled scientists in. We had people that were experts that had been in this field for their entire lives. And they didn't listen, and they won't listen. And I don't know what to do about that. So when people call me and say, oh, I can't believe that this is happening. Yeah, I take it a little personal. I am very upset about this. And I'm very upset at the Board of Forestry. They played political games. And now we're watching 7 mills close down in a matter of months. And all of those people losing jobs, all of those community losing services. The tax revenue's gone. The property tax, people are going to be moving out of the schools are going to fire police. It's so much of Oregon is going to be impacted by this. And it was funny. You were at the logging conference in Eugene, and you heard Rex Storm from AOL, from Association of Oregon Loggers, get up and talk to Randy Moore, who is the U.S. Forest Service chief. And what Rex said, which just hit me between the eyes, and it makes me want to cry when I think about it. He said, you think that Oregon is dependent on timber? You think Oregon is dependent on timber? We are not dependent on timber. We are timber dependable.
Yeah. And
that hit me so hard, because we really are timber dependable. We really know how to manage our forests. We have 61% of our forests owned in Oregon are federally owned, and they're not managed. And 86% of our forest fire is on federal land.
And the problem for private timber owners is it's like having a bad neighbor. So you keep your yard clean, you keep the debris up, yours is all fine. And then the trashy neighbors next door, the Forest Service, the federal government, they don't do anything. They've got garbage cans and nice out there, and the fire hits them, and then it starts destroying private land as well. Like Justina's, during that fire there, it destroyed so much of Justina's land. Mm-hmm. And it's because Forest Service isn't taking care of it. The thing, Jen, that always frustrates me when I do these stories is if people understood, Oregon has the gold standard for taking care of the environment when it comes to logging. Yes. I've had people tell me they've had people from Scotland and England come here, and they say, if we had to do what you do, we probably wouldn't be in business. You guys do this so well. So we grow timber well. It's a crop. in it, and we're good at it, and we regrow it really well. Somebody should, if you guys want to really do your own little homework, go up to Mount St. Helens and you look at what the Forest Service has property on the mountain, and then you look right next door what George Weyerhaeuser has on the mountain. And George Weyerhaeuser and his company, they fixed the land, they replanted trees. It looks like a magical forest, and it's ready to be harvested. It's been 40, 50 years. It's ready to be harvested again and replanted. Where Mother Nature was let go, nothing.
No.
And people go up there and go, look how much Mother Nature's fixed it. They don't look at, no, that's not Mother Nature. That's Father Weyerhaeuser. And Mother Nature, she's not bad, but she takes thousands of years to do this. And we can't afford to do that because we need wood products for your toothpaste, for your houses, for, I mean, so many things that we all use are wood products. And here's the kind of the clincher, and then I'll shut up and let you go. We are now at risk of bringing products from China and Russia, our enemies. We're going to ship that in so you can go to Home Depot and pick up your 2x4s and your lumber. And we are, and yet you tell me as a person, I should be shopping within 200 miles of my house for my food and vegetables and be buying local. So you're hypocrites, because you're saying, buy your food, buy this, don't use so much energy, don't use so much shipping energy, shipping stuff across the sea. And you're willing to let Oregon, where we grow this stuff so well, and we do it better because we do it more environmentally, where China doesn't give a shit, and Russia, they don't care. And so that's hypocrisy. Because we're pretending like, look, we're not cutting our forest, but we're buying our lumber from people who treat the woods like shit.
Yep.
That kind of stuff right there. You know how you get something gets you riled.
Yep.
That hypocrisy that is so easy for people to jump onto because they're uneducated and ignorant. That drives me crazy. Yep. Because it's not that much to listen and figure this stuff out.
No, I totally agree with you. So also, forest fire does not require replant. It does not require replant. Salvage harvest requires replant. So if a forest burns down anywhere in the United States, but particularly Oregon, if a forest burns down, nobody is required to replant. But the second that it's salvaged and some of that fiber can be salvaged, then it is absolutely that triggers the law and you have to replant. So the thing is that in Oregon, now we have 1 million acres gone in the 2020 fires. We have 1.5 million acres gone and still a couple months left of fire season to go in 2024. If we can get in there and salvage that timber, it would require us to replant it. So whoever is buying that timber, whether it's a mill or a logging company, and they bid on that timber, they go in there and they salvage it, they are also responsible for cleaning up the forest and replanting it at no cost to taxpayers.
And
so it's a win-win.
Yeah. And when you bring that up, I want to also let people remember these are federal forests. So they don't belong to Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or even Donald Trump if he was to win. They belong to you and me. So we should have more of a say of how these things are going to be managed. And let me make one other point here too. When those fires burn on private land, they do salvage the timber and they do replant and they put stream buffers in. And in the Jacina's case, I only know this for a fact, they put bigger ones than they have to.
Yes.
So, because you know what? It's their land and they take care of it.
Because we are stewards. We are stewards of our land.
So really, if you really think about this could step on a few toes, but if you really think about it, we, the public, we're bad stewards of our own land because we're allowing this to go on, and we're allowing politicians and governors and forestry boards to do what we don't have the time or don't want to make the time to do until it comes into our backyard. One of the things, I think you know this too. I'm good with all this stuff I'm doing. I'm learning so much stuff. Timber industry did a survey, and in the summer months, the general public just pissed about forest fires. Just makes them angry. Do the same exact survey in December. Nobody gives a shit.
No.
Well, guess what? Those trees are growing and will be, if we take care of them, growing long past our lifespan.
Yes, they will.
but we, the general public, are really letting down the forests because we're not managing our politicians.
That's right.
That's what, Jen,
Yeah.
we need to have more politician management. It's not about forest management. It's public management of our politicians.
Yes.
PMP, public management of politicians.
I like it. I like it.
I'm serious. That's really, it's our fault. We're the ones who aren't taking care of this stuff.
Yep.
We pass it off, and then you get a elected official in a county calling up, going, "Oh, my forest, my whole land burned up." Well, guess what? 6 months ago, were you at the meeting talking about forests and management stuff like this? No. So and it's not a guilt trip, but we just need to get involved. And, I think one thing that we probably all do agree on is living in Montana, Idaho, Oregon, we care about our forests. Yes. I mean, we do. Yes. So let's back that with some action. You can't love somebody or love something without action. You have to show that. Okay. And you can't just let people walk over with their ideology and, or walk around to your friends and say, "Oh, I'm against forest cutting, timber cutting, and, I'm against clear cutting." Well, they don't even do that anymore. So get in the modern era here, but I'm against that. Well, maybe you ought to find out, are you against affordable housing or against recreating the forests? Do you like to walk in a charred forest? Are you against destroying spotted owl and barred owl habitat? I mean, what are you about instead of what are you against?
Yeah.
So what do you hope this letter will do? What is Henri intending?
So I did not sign the letter as president of Oregon Natural Resource Industries. I signed it as Jen Hamaker, because it's personal.
Right.
And it hurts. And these are real people they're messing with.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to know. I know. And I'm pointing my finger at them and telling them, Board of Forestry, you did this. And that was the title of my email to them, was "You did this." And I meant it. And I hope they feel that.
So is part of the reason this is so personal, and you can tell me to shut up, but you won't, because your grandfather, started Seneca Sawmill, and he was known for taking good care of his people and respecting and honoring the small communities that thrived on that. And at one time, that was Eugene and Springfield, were small communities where everything, the Stubbs Stewarts, all these families, the Justina families, these were all like poor people, came here and started these things, had an idea, created an industry, and it's Oregon. It's like a part of Oregon, and that we're letting slip by, and it's destroying not only lives, but the saddest thing about it is we have an affordable housing problem.
Yeah.
And this is not helping.
Right.
Spotted Owl's got all the house they need. And how do you tell Bill and Jane and their 2 kids, you're going to have to rent a house in Oregon for the rest of your lives because we're protecting a bird?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely crazy. So there was you're talking about, people's lives. So the University of California did a study between 2008 and 2018 on the mortality rate of people that inhaled wildfire smoke.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And there was about 55,000 people on their death certificate died from inhaling wildfire smoke in California. That's about 5,000 people every year in California from 2008 to 2018.
Wow.
5,000 people a year die because they inhale massive amounts of this smoke. And in Oregon, we have a population, we have, our land mass is much smaller, but the fires usually happen in one area.
Right.
And and so I'm sure that, we're probably similar in that respect. I know people that get sick every year and they can't even go outside. Last year, Casey, my sister, as you know, her kids couldn't play sports during the summertime. They couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this, like you said, during the survey during the summer versus during, we really need to bridge that gap. We really need to get people, and I don't know exactly how to do it, that it is super important. I want to get candidates that are running for this next election to start talking about it being a platform. Our natural resources, specifically our timber and lumber industries in Oregon, need to be a talking point. And not be afraid to talk about them. These are things that we know how to manage. We know how to nurture and make healthy and resilient. Whereas, obviously we're talking about the federal government, they don't do that. And in all actuality, the federal government, the U.S. Forest Service, makes money on every acre that burns. So it behooves them to allow it to burn. And it's proven, and I can prove it to you. But
it's become big business.
Yeah, it's a huge business because before 1990, the Forest Service used to make their money, create money by timber sales. It's the same thing as Oregon Department of Forestry on a state level, but on a federal level, they used to generate their own income, which is one of the only agencies in the federal government that generates its own income. But then the spotted owl happened, and 90% of the federal forest got shut down to any kind of management, or they call it management. It's passive management, but because of the spotted owl, nobody is able to log any more trees. And so from 1990 till now, we've let those forest fuels grow. And now the federal Forest Service makes money on, instead of managing and harvesting our timber, on fire. That's how they make their money now.
They manage it with fire.
They manage it with fire.
Yeah. And so you're and everybody I'm talking to says that is not a good plan.
It's so horrible. But also, I wanted to tell you one thing really quick. I know I've said this to you before, but I don't know if I've actually said it to the public before. They talk about climate change, and the reason why the forests are burning down is because of climate change, and it's, the hotter seasons and all this kind of stuff, whatever. Well, first of all, I want to say that if they wanted to mitigate climate change, they would first mitigate the fires, because the initial blaze lets off a ton of emissions. For every, let's see here, how am I going to put this? Half of the weight of any dried wood is carbon. So when that wood burns, that carbon is released. That's a massive amount of carbon that's released. And just to give you a statistic, or just to give you a perspective on this, Oregon emits 37.9 million metric tons of emissions every single year. Our forests and the products that are made from our forests sequester 49.5 million metric tons per year. So we go far, our forests and our products that we make go far and beyond what Oregon emits. We're already green. So it gobbles up, and it's for free. We don't have to pay for any kind of anything to sequester this carbon or to get it off the grid or whatever. It's for free. These trees do it for free.
Well, even if it were climate change, you still can't have fire. That doesn't help climate change. It's just dumping more carbon in the air. It doesn't help with the animals and the wildlife. Right. It definitely doesn't help with stream restoration, because it's dumping all that soot and char and all that crap into our streams, so the fish get damaged. So you can't use that. People can't use that, and because okay, if there is climate change, and if that's what it is, we still need to be doing this. We need to be managing for these things, not just sitting back and going, oh yeah, well, there's another fire. I heard that I read somewhere that the fires over Labor Day in Oregon, just that week and a half, whatever it was, put as much carbon into the air and pollution as an entire year of Portland and Oregon cars, businesses, big companies that with steam and the things they put in, that it was more, that 2-week, 3-week period was more than the entire year of all the other stuff, cars, everything.
Running 365 days a year for 24 hours a day. Yes, that is absolutely true. And not only that, but that's the initial blaze. For 30 years, those forests decompose. And for 30 years in that decomposing process, emissions are also being emitted, not at the same extent, but almost equivalent to the same amount as what was burned in the initial blaze. Yeah.
Jen Hamaker, thank you for always sharing your wealth of information and years of experience, and lighting a fire under our ass. It's empowering. It's like, this is like, we should be really proud that we have the ability to manage our politicians better and push this, because we really need to do that. Yes. In order, because let's just face it, this whole decision with the forestry department, this was political. This wasn't about best management practices for our forests. Mm-hmm. And so we need to, as the owner of those forests, if we really do want to just be virtue signaling, well, you can, be like all those people, or you can really get out and do something and start going, as if county commissioners are in the audience watching, take control. People elected you to take control of this stuff and stop being that's the other thing. I think, Jen, quit being afraid, people. God, people are going to hate you no matter what you think. And speaking out, you make enemies, but guess what? You go to sleep at night and you sleep.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there pretending and afraid to say anything because you don't want to stir waves, then step over, get out of the way, because there's people that want to make waves. No. And because we really truly care about our forests, we're not just here going blah, 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 blah,
Yes.
Well, thank you for being here, and I really appreciate your time. And I know you got a kid to pick up, and I already made you late. Okay. I will. Real fast. How do people get a hold of Henri if they want to talk more about this or see what you guys do?
You can get a hold of me. My name is Jen Hamaker. I'm the president of Oregon Natural Resource Industries, and my phone number is 805-245-2612. You can email me at jenhamaker1@gmail.com.
All right. Jen, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. See you later.
Goodbye.
So now it's up to you. We really get to take charge and do something about this. I guess I would just ask you to look at that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And so how can it be true? If things don't add up, if we claim to be sustainable, we claim to want carbon out of our air, we claim to want to save the old growth forests, and yet we're burning them up. We claim to want to save the spotted owl, so we burn up its habitat with our policies. I mean, we're kind of a fickle bunch, and we need to develop some kahunas, really. Share this on your page. Let other people know what's going on. This is all we can do, is educate people at this point. I will talk with you the next time.